Hello and welcome. I've got a short practice for you to bring into your Christmas holiday season. I know this time of year is really busy and it can be hard to get up to the yoga studio. So I've put together a short collection of my favorite poses for this time of year when naturally energy levels are a little bit lower. And the mind can be a little busy and frazzled with the number of to-do lists and the number of places to go and people to see. So I hope that this practice gives you that point of recharge and connection. Now, the basic premise of this practice here is looking at the two ways that we can affect the nervous system. So during wintertime, it's very common to feel lethargy, so a kind of tiredness, a fatigue, as naturally we respond to the season where there's less light, and our body clock is kind of built towards going to sleep for longer periods of time. So the fact that we go through quite a busy social season at this time is kind of going a little bit against the grain of nature. So in the practice, what I'm looking to help bring into the body is a bit more energy and a bit more aliveness, but without depleting our energy reservoirs further. And that's why I'm going to be using more restorative and yin practices, not exclusively, but certainly a more steady and nourishing practice. On top of that, there are different styles of postures, some which tend to be more grounding and calming and soothing, and some tend to be more energizing and invigorating. Now, it's a little simplistic to divide the postures in this kind of binary way, but generally poses which open up the chest, which we could call back bending postures, they tend to have an energizing quality to them that stimulates the sympathetic side of the nervous system, the kind of active, kind of communication focused side of the nervous system. Conversely, forward-facing postures, such as forward folding poses, those kind of hip openers where you're leaning over the front of your body, those tend to be connected with the parasympathetic side of the nervous system, which is all about slowing down, self-connection, leaning into the kind of soothing, calming, regenerating response that the body needs. So I'm going to give you a little bit of both, but there certainly will be some of the back bending, chest opening postures, just to make sure that we're kind of not locked in this lethargic state. And then the other way that we can modify and affect the nervous system and our energy levels is through breath work. Generally, we want to be breathing slowly, and we want the exhalation to be slightly longer than the inhalation. So I'll add in some of the breathing techniques that are helpful just for bringing you back to balance, no matter whether you're feeling a little frazzled and stressed or whether you're feeling quite low in energy. Reworking the breath and resetting it to its natural resting rhythm can be really helpful. So I hope you enjoy. These kind of principles of sequencing are something that we cover on the 200-hour yoga course, and we've got the new dates out now for 2023. So feel free to check that out in the training page on my website. We look at how to create balance sequences in a way that affects our energetic body and also our nervous system from a more kind of scientific or evidence-based approach. So any questions, feel free to reach out to me over the season. Let's begin. And if you have at home with you a blanket, 2 bolsters, if you've got a kind of eye bag or a sandbag or something that you could put over your eyes for the end, and a yoga belt, then that's all really helpful. If you've got yoga bricks or blocks as well, then perfect, bring them in. I'm fully aware that probably only a few of you have such a luxurious kit out at home. So instead of the bolsters, you can actually use a pillow from your bed. Blanket, obviously you can use a duvet. You could maybe just grab a blanket from the sofa instead. A normal jeans belt would work in by way of a yoga belt. Again, a cushion or just a little bit of blanket or a flannel even can work instead of the eye mask. And the blocks and bricks can be replaced with books if you've got books of a kind of even thickness there. Let's begin. Our first pose is one of my favorites, Supta Baddha Konasana. And if you'd like a playlist to go with this, then please feel free to find me on Spotify under Jessica Stewart Yoga, and I'll post you guys a link through my mailing list as well. So you've got a playlist you can listen to as we practice together. So let's come on down to a kind of position near the mats, and I'll help you to set up for the first posture. So I should add as well, I'm 6 months pregnant here, so if you are also pregnant, this sequence is suitable for pregnancy. However, in the kind of backward lying postures we're going to begin with here, if you find that lying on your back isn't comfortable, if the baby's a bit bigger or you're at later stages of pregnancy, then instead could you adopt a side lying position with a bolster between your knees. So you'll see here I've got one bolster slanted upwards in a ramp shape, the other bolster underneath horizontally across the top third of the mat. And then I'm going to fold my blanket so that it's about 2 inches thick and place that just below at the bottom of the bolster. So I've got some support and a gentle gradient to kind of support my pelvis into my lower back. I'm then going to grab my bricks. So here, if you don't have bricks nearby, then you could use 2 books of about that thickness and have them either side. And then sit on the blanket, squash down the ends of the bolster, and then begin to lie back with the soles of your feet together and the knees wide to the sides. You might find that you need to consciously lengthen the back of your head behind you, and then bring your arms alongside you, palms facing upwards. Allow your shoulders to drop down towards the floor. Gently turn up the corners of your mouth into a quarter smile. And then letting your eyes close, begin to focus on how your body is immediately responding to the posture. So it might be that you place 2 bricks underneath the outsides of your hips so that you're not feeling too much stress or load going through the inner groin. It might be that when you bring your knees out wide, it starts to impinge on the lower back in an uncomfortable way. And if that's the case, you might actually prefer to have your feet flat on the ground and the knees folding inwards towards one another. Lift both of your arms up to the ceiling momentarily, and then stretch your arms out really wide towards the side so you feel the shoulder blades kind of dropping down off the sides of the bolster. And then close your eyes and let your awareness drop into how the body is feeling. Now, the body feeling and how the mind is feeling are kind of 2 different things. So here I want you to connect to the feeling of the muscles, and if there's muscular restriction in certain areas, notice where it feels like the breath is flowing to. Notice if there's a sense of release or relaxation or a heaviness in certain joint regions or areas of your body. Notice if there's any tension that you're carrying unnecessarily, perhaps around the neck, the chin, the shoulders, the arms, face. Scan your awareness now through the back surface of the body, and area by area, notice your body's contact to the ground. Methodically and steadily working your way, possibly from the back of the skull, down the spine, towards the pelvis, back of the legs, outsides of the feet. But really taking in the feeling of the skin on the ground or the clothing as it connects to the props. In this gorgeous posture, Supta Baddha Konasana, we're looking to create a feeling of energy and openness across the chest, which particularly in the colder seasons, we tend to shut down and close. But as we use the props and we hold this posture passively for a longer time, we're looking to also create an abundance of energy as we let go of tension and as we consciously relax the body. This posture wants to feel effortless, like you're falling back into a supportive surface. Now staying attuned to the feeling of the body as it melts into the posture, breath by breath. Begin to be aware of the sounds around you, and it may well be that you have a busier, noisier household over this season, or it may be that you can hear the sounds of nature or the city outside. See if you can listen intimately but non-intrusively to just what's surfacing moment by moment. Listen without labeling the source of the sounds. And instead be absorbed by the kind of textural resonance as it rises and falls and changes and then drops. And finally, after observing the feeling of the body melting, after taking in the sounds around us, thirdly, let's attend to the breath. Now, all of us will breathe at a slightly unique rhythm. And it's very important that you honor your natural breathing. So if my instruction's too fast or too slow for you, please follow your own breath above my instruction. Let's exhale so we're at the same point together in the breath. And then as you breathe in nice and slowly, counting in for 4, 3, 2, and 1. You hold the inhalation for 2 and 1. And as you exhale, breathe out through a small parting in your lips like you're blowing out a candle, counting down for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pausing at the end of the breath, 2 and 1. Breathing in for 4. Hold the inhalation at the top of the breath for 4. Exhale for 6. And then this time breathe in 6, slowing down the rhythm of your inhalation. Not really taking in more air, but just taking longer to breathe the same amount in. Feel the ribcage broadening, for your shoulder blades melting, the belly expanding. Pausing momentarily at the top of the breath, and as you exhale, this time opening your mouth and making a big ha sound, as if fogging up a mirror just in front of the face, and count down for the same rhythm of 6. Pause at the end of the out breath, and then mouth closes. Breathe in for 6. Pause at the top, and as you exhale, this time mouth stays closed. Same ha sound, but mouth closed, counting down for 6. Listen to that oceanic reverberation at the back of your throat. Pause at the end of the out breath, and then one more round, breathing in for 6. Be present to feel the breath changing tide, and as you exhale, breathing out for 6. Two more cycles of breath. If it's helpful to sustain that in 6, out 6 rhythm, which is a technique called coherent breathing, then you're welcome to sustain it. If you want to come back to a non-counting form of breathing, then that's also fine. And then begin to bring your arms around the outsides of your legs and lift the legs back through to center, feet down on the ground underneath your sitting bones. Gently rock the legs side to side. Good, and then press the hands into the ground and slowly lift your body up through to sit. And you're welcome to stay in that pose for longer. And I'm wanting to move us on so that I can give you a nice thorough practice in a shorter space of time. That pose, if you want to practice that one on your own, could be held for 5, even 10 minutes, as long as you've got the right props supporting your body. Let's come into a seated meditation to begin, and you're very welcome to sit up against a wall for this. You're very welcome to have the legs outstretched in front of you if you prefer. If there's any kind of issues with the knees or lower back, that can be helpful. Between the sides, we're just going to come into a brief Tao flow. So as you inhale, lift both of your arms up towards the ceiling as you breathe in. And as you exhale, breathe out through the back of the throat with that ha sound as your arms drift down towards the nape of your neck. Inhale to press your arms out wide towards the sides, like you're breaking the walls, and got that strong opening around your chest. Turn your palms to face up, and as you inhale, bring your hands on top of your shoulders and lift your elbows up really high, like you're sending the breath into the sides of the body. As you exhale, make a ha sound out the mouth as you press your arms forward, round your spine, hold steady as you draw your body backwards. And as you inhale, wash your hands over your face, lifting your gaze towards the ceiling and reaching up into your fingertips. As you exhale, twist towards the right side, looking over the right shoulder, gently angling your right ear to your neck. And as you inhale, lift both of your arms smoothly back up, really sensing your center line through the spine. As you exhale, twist towards the left side, gently angling the left ear toward the left shoulder. And then inhale to glide back up through to center. And as you exhale, bring the hands down in front of the heart and turn your palms to face one another and hold that space there around the heart center, with the palms slightly open to the space in front of you, but also connected to the inner landscape of the heart center, the belly, the chest of your body. And slowly press the palms together. Let's come into our second longer hold. So this one is a supine twist. I'd recommend placing the blanket near the top of your head, folded out, so you've just got an inch at most, maybe less than an inch, to support the back nape of your neck. Now there are lots of different ways of propping this one. You target this piece around the outside of your hip into lower back. We don't want you to be feeling any straining in the lower spine or any pain or restriction around the hip joint. So in its most simple form, spine is flat down on the ground, the blanket just underneath the back of the head and the nape of your neck. You slide both of your hips towards the right side, lengthen your left leg and bring your right knee over, either onto the bolster or not. You could just let the leg hang heavy like that into the ground, or you can slip a bolster or a pillow underneath the top shin so your leg's supported. Or if you've got any issues in the lower back at the moment, or just want something really restorative, place the bolster between your knees so your pelvis stays nice and level. Then unravel your arms and reach or wriggle the shoulder blades out wide to the sides and extend your arms at the same height as your shoulders, like wings. Now for more of a restorative feeling, you can put the center of your skull on the ground. If you want to create more of a release in the side of the neck, you can turn your gaze towards the right hand. The idea is that both shoulder blades are flat down on the floor here, and the top leg is heavy. So if you find this top leg is bobbing away from the bolster or the support that you have, you might want to gently place a warm hand on that leg to ease it down. That doesn't feel forceful. There is also a way of binding a strap around the thighs so both legs move over whilst you keep the thigh bones hip distance. So feel free to play around with those options if your body is kind of needing that. So to decrease the intensity of the pose, you add in more props. To increase the intensity, you take away the props. And we'll be in this one just for 2 minutes. So allow your eyes to close and immediately come back into the rhythm of your breathing. Since the body is in rotation, you'll find that the breath is naturally a little bit smaller than it was while we were open with the chest and the belly. So you might prefer to adopt a rhythm that's more like in for 4 and out for 6 on this one. Make sure you're still honoring the pauses between the breaths. So there's a moment of hesitation or a lull as the breath turns tide. And you might like to visualize a kind of figure of 8 as you're breathing. So you're kind of visualizing one side of the breath being that long kind of horizontal diagonal line. You're visualizing the changing of the breath, that moment of pause as the looping at the end. And then the other side of the breath cutting the other diagonal. In terms of kind of later on pregnancy options, if you find here that the rotation in the body doesn't feel comfortable anymore due to the baby growing, then you can also bring your right arm over towards the left side. And definitely in the later stages of pregnancy, I'd really encourage you to prop the legs with a bolster or a couple of bricks or cushions between them. So the front of the pelvis is kept level with the back of the pelvis. Good job. And let's shift to the other side. So nice and slowly ease your body back through to center. Slide your hips an inch or two towards the left. Lengthen your right leg into the center line. Bring your left knee over towards the right side. And when you look down, the shoulder and the top hip should be more or less in the same line. Then use your prop. So you could then stack your knees on top of one another. You can place a bolster or two between the legs or a cushion. And again, if you feel like the rotation is too much, you can actually bring your left arm on top of your right arm. And once you've chosen whether the head is centered or the gaze is turning towards your left hand, close your eyes and draw your chin squeeze down towards your throat. Come back to that visual of the infinity circle, so kind of looping a figure of 8 in your mind's eye as you follow your breath. Using the ends of the 8 or the kind of infinity loop to turn the breath. The whole aim here is slow breathing, so taking as long as possible for the tide of your breath to come and go. Anytime that thoughts inevitably come into the mind as we practice, then rather than repressing the thinking or trying to analyze or narrate the thinking that's going on, certainly instead of problem solving anything, instead kind of weave or fold the thought or the feeling into the breath. Just a few more breaths here on this side. Okay, and then begin to fold the body back, or the legs rather, back through to center, coming out of the pose. Good, well done. Okay, we're going to come into a forward folding posture now. So this one's pigeon pose. If you find that pigeon pose isn't quite right for you, try a low lunge. If low lunge doesn't work, lie on your back and take thread the needle, which is that figure 4 shape, lying on your back. Okay. So to transition from your lying position, begin by bringing both of your knees in towards your chest, and you can either roll to the side and rock up, or rock up through the center line. Cross over the legs and roll over the legs to come onto an all fours base, hands underneath your shoulders. I grab your 2 bricks if you've got them nearby, just to give yourself lots of nice space for downward dog. Turn your biceps forward and draw the shoulder blades back, lifting the armpits nice and high and kind of hugging the belly into the lower spine. Tuck your toes, hover your knees a tiny bit away from the ground, and then slide your hips up and back into Ardha Mukha Shavasana, downward facing dog pose. Take 3 breaths here, allowing for that kind of inversion to sink into the body. So you might find the change in direction kind of stimulates warmth and tingling in the head as you have your head lower than your heart. Use some kind of leverage through the legs to press your chest back towards the thighs, and imagine tilting your sitting bones up. If you find the knees a little bit relaxed to get the sitting bones to tilt up higher, then please feel free to try that variation. And then walk the feet out a little bit wider than you would normally. Turn the heels out behind the second toe, or maybe even wider, and feel how that really releases around the calves and the inner thighs. And now let's come into pigeon. So bring your right knee behind your right wrist, your foot towards the left side. Slide your left leg back and lift the chest up and high here. Now, if you know that moving into this kind of shape isn't right for your knees or for your hips, then instead take your right foot to be outside of the right hand and be in this kind of lunging structure like this with both of your hands on your bricks. As I said, if that still doesn't feel right, then come onto your back foot. Otherwise, take an inhale and lift your chest up, roll your shoulder blades down your back. And then you might want to bring in either your blocks or a bolster or a pillow and hug onto the bolster or the pillow as you come down into this lying shape here. Now here the aim is that the pelvis feels quite level around the back. And I want you to be feeling the release around the inside right groin and the right center glute. You might also feel a little bit of release across the front of the left hip. And you can enhance that by placing a flat block in the gap, if there is one, between your right heel and your left hip bone. Now this time we're going to add in a different breathing technique, simply kind of called the count to 10. It's an old mindfulness technique just to keep us connected to the breath. So as you breathe in, call your inhalation breath 1. As you exhale, call your exhalation breath 2. Inhale, call it 3. Take a nice long soft amount of time to expand the breath. And as you exhale, call your exhalation breath 4. Keep counting both sides of the breath all the way to 10. Again, the focus is on taking a longer time to breathe in the same amount of air. So almost like a slow puncture, you let the breath out gently and you gently hug it in, like you're diffusing air into the lungs rather than anchoring it down into the lungs. Now, as you focus in this way on the breath, surrender the weight of your body into the pose. So it's this slow and continual process of letting go, of trusting the pose, and of allowing your body to unfold itself toward the ground. Let your eyes close and your jaw soften. Any kind of psychological or mental sense of carrying or holding, see if you can let that go too. And instead, for this moment, let yourself be held by the ground. And then slowly begin to press your hands into the ground, those of you in Pigeon, and begin to lift your body up and back into downward facing dog. Same those in a lunge position. Anyone that's taking the option of lying on your back for thread the needle, simply change over to the other side. Take a couple of breaths in your downward facing dog here again. If it's helpful, your hands are on the bricks and you're welcome to bend the knees and space the legs out much wider, because we're really focusing on this soothing, grounding quality in the practice today. And then bring your left knee behind your left wrist, your foot towards the right side of the mat for left side pigeon pose, or alternatively, left foot to the outside of the left hand for your lizard. Again, in terms of propping, then it can be helpful to have a bolster in front of you to support your body. You might like to place a flat block in that gap between the left heel and your right hip. Your pelvis wants to feel level, so rather than sitting down on one side, your hips are evenly facing the ground. And if you had your cheek turned to the side, make sure that the other cheek is on the bolster this time. And then the same process of observing natural breath, taking as long as possible to breathe. And beginning to use that count to 10 technique to keep us connected to the flow of the breath. This is a way of anchoring the mind in the here and now reality of the present moment. So any time that you find that you've jumped to the past or the future, come back to the fullness of your breath. Really be absorbed by that nourishing flow and a feeling of lightness and expansion on the inhalation, re-energizing. And as you exhale, focus on the calming, soothing, and grounding quality that comes with the exhale. Now, if you lose count, begin again at 1. And when you get to 10 as well, you can also just begin again at 1. Remember to linger on the pauses between the breaths. So this is the slowest form of counting possible. Okay, and then begin to lift your body slowly away from the bolster. And then make your way up through to a seated position. We'll close our practice together here with a short breathwork technique called anuloma-viloma. So a version of alternate nostril breathing where we emphasize the exhale side of the breath. So again, here we're looking at kind of calming down, of soothing, resetting, re-nourishing energy levels by stimulating the parasympathetic side of the nervous system. So bring the hands down onto the knees. Now, if you're already feeling a little bit lethargic, what we're going to do is just take a couple of in-breaths to kind of perk up the mind and wake you up a little, because if we're too sleepy, then we won't feel the kind of rebalancing effect of the breath, of the breathing technique. So let this be. If you're already frazzled enough or high energy enough, leave this one alone. But if you need to just reawaken and invigorate the body, join me now by exhaling together. And then we're going to take 5 staggered breaths in, like you're a balloon slowly inflating. Hold the inhalation at the top. If you feel comfortable to, look your chin down towards your chest, pull and squeeze up the perineum and the pelvic floor. Anyone that doesn't feel comfortable holding the breath, no need to, don't. Otherwise, hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then lift your chin. And as you exhale, breathe out and allow the breath to kind of drift downwards, away from the shoulders, away from the belly, down into the earth. One more round of that. 5 staggered breaths in through the nose. Hold the inhalation, shoulders back, body soft but upright, and hold for 7 if you're comfortable to. And as you exhale, breathing out nice and slowly for 7, maybe even 8. And then let's come in to alternate nostril breathing. So bring index and middle finger to the center of the eyebrows. If you're right-handed, your thumb will block your right nostril, and then your ring finger your left. If you're left-handed, it'll be those same digits, but the other way around on the other nostrils. Now, partially block both nostrils and inhale, first of all, through both nostrils. There should be a slower influx of air because you kind of half press both nostrils close to the bridge. And now block the right fully, partially unblock the left, and exhale through the left nostril. Let the breath peter out nice and gently. Partially unblock both nostrils, inhale both. Fully block the left, partially the right. Exhaling right. Let the breath peter out nice and slowly. And partially unblock both and gently inhale both. Try and avoid any juddering of the breath. Keep it really smooth and gentle. Fill up the back of the lungs, the sides of the rib cage, low down to the belly. Fully block the right nostril, partially unblock the left. Exhale gently through the left side. Pause at the end of the breath. Partially unblock both nostrils and inhale through both nostrils. Pause at the top. Block the left, partially unblock the right, and as you exhale, breathe out through the right side. Partially unblock both, inhale both. Pause at the top, let the chest rise, shoulders back, back of the skull back. Block the right fully, partially the left, exhale left. Pause at the end. Partially unblock both and inhale both. And pause. Fully block the left, partially the right, exhale right side. Partially unblock both and inhale both. Last breath, fully block the right, partially the left, exhale left. Let your mind be really connected to the feeling of the breath as you breathe it. Partially unblock both And when you're ready, breathe in through both. Really bring in a sense of lightness, of resiliency, of integrity as you fulfill the inhalation breath. Let both hands drift down onto your knees now, shoulders back. Turn up the corners of the mouth and lean your head and your chest back a little bit, as if there's someone supportive that's got one hand at the back of the skull, one hand at the back of your heart. And then exhale, breathe out through a small party in the lips. And then slowly come on down to lie in your final shavasana. So here, definitely would recommend, again, just taking a little bit more time to make your shavasana super deluxe. So I'd recommend here 1 or 2 bolsters, which can be underneath the back of the knees and also underneath the back of the ankles. If you are pregnant and not comfortable lying on your back, come to side lying with the bolster between the thighs. You might also want to have your blanket underneath the back of your head. You might also want your eye pillow over the eyes and a second blanket over the body, so you're really, really wrapped up. It's these small acts of self-care that can make such a huge difference to nourishing you and re-energizing you. So once you come into the structure, give the whole weight of your body down. There is also an option to strap up the thighs as well. So if you have the strap kind of bound, but about thigh distance apart, you can place that over the center of the thigh bones in that kind of structure there, so that as you relax the legs, the thighs are kind of supported, meaning there's no need, no requirement for any tension or load on the muscles of the legs. They'll be a little bit fiddly, so you might find that the bolsters actually need readjusting once you come on down to lie. Feel free to wriggle out the shoulders, lengthen the back of your head behind you, and really give the whole weight of your body down, that you're lying back on a warm water surface and allowing your body to drift downstream. Now, I'd like to leave you with a little theme for this shavasana, which you are welcome to be in for as long as you're able to. Definitely 1 minute that I'll be with you here. But if you can, maybe a 5-minute shavasana for longer, or just until you get interrupted. And the quality that I'd like you to invite into your shavasana is that of gratitude, which really begins with self-acceptance and a connection to who you are and how you are in the present moment. I think often we try and jump to gratitude, kind of forcing a certain mindset upon us that isn't genuine. And if you are depleted or feeling a little bit run ragged, it's quite hard to jump from that depleted state to genuine gratitude. So we start by honoring exactly how and who we are in this moment. Name it if you're tired, if you're exhausted, if you're feeling a strong emotion. Listen intimately, but non-intrusively, without judgment. And then acknowledge life exactly as life is, without wishing it were different, without trying to change anything, just being with what is in this moment right now. Naming it without judging or condemning. And as you allow things to be just as they are, I'm hoping that you get this feeling, this lift almost of ease as you accept what is, what's real, what's surfacing for you. So you create a gap between the stimulus, the feeling, the emotion, the thought, and any desire or urge for it to be different, to respond. Create just a beautiful, peaceful gap between those two states. Sitting with the truth of things as they are, and just being with that rather than immediately shifting into action. Now let the breath fill the space between that stimulus and the response. Really bathe in that soothing, nourishing breath. Allow that breath to really roam freely around your whole body, so it feels like the whole of you is expanding as you breathe in. And the whole of you is recentering and grounding as you breathe out, honoring who you are and how life is in this moment. And then begin to do a kind of mindfulness technique, which we call taking in the good. So let it be intuitive, don't force it, but begin to take in one simple thing that feels wholesome and good and nourishing, really from this present moment right now. Just the feeling of the ground, perhaps, the feeling of warmth, appreciating something that is real and present in the here and now. Keep it really simple. And then let your sense of hearing radiate outwards and take in the home that you're in, wherever you are. And take in something that you're grateful for from the space of that home. Don't get involved in the stories, the dramas there, but, oh yeah, but this happened. Just take in something that is wholesome, something that is real, something that you're genuinely grateful for from your home environment, from the place that you're practicing from. No narratives, just take in the thing. Be with that for a moment, hold it in your heart, and again, allow the breath to do the work of kind of moving that around the body. So the breath dwells in the space between the stimulus and the response. The breath dwells in the space between you feeling the gratitude and you directing the gratitude to that thing, to that energy, to that person, to that quality. And let that feeling of gratitude really bathe in, or your body really bathe in the feeling of gratitude that you send around the body. And then finally, let your sense of hearing and your connection really radiate outwards beyond your home, beyond your immediate environment. And take in something. It might be the sound of nature at this time of year, the season. It might be the sound of the environment that you're living in, whether that's rural, urban, or in between. It might be the kind of felt sense of the wider community. It might be your collective feeling about humanity and about the earth itself. And just find something that is anchoring naturally in your body that you're grateful for, something that is nourishing, wholesome, and good. And take in that good, drink it in, be with that gratitude, be with that appreciation for a few moments. And again, allow the breath to circulate that feeling of gratitude, that wholesomeness, that connection to your extended environment, and bring that into the body now. And then begin to wriggle the fingers and the toes. And if you're ready to leave shavasana with me, then begin to bring your knees in towards your chest and roll over towards the right side. I'm going to press your hands down into the ground and then lift your body around to sit or to kneel facing the front. Lift your body up. Excuse me. And let's close together, bringing both hands together in the heart center, gently drawing in your chin's crease. Again, reinforcing the good, those three things, one from in the here and now, one from the space that you're in, your home, one from your wider community. And then bring the hands towards the forehead and bow your head down, offering up your practice to someone or something else. Namaste, and really well done for taking some time for you in this winter season. It's lovely practicing with you, and I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to me on email anytime over this season. Wishing you all a very, very good winter holiday season and solstice. Namaste.